right, so it is 9:01, so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. There's still some folks joining us, which is great. I'm excited to see you all here this morning. So thank you all for joining us for our February webinar presented by the Sustainable Forests Education Co-op in collaboration with the University of Minnesota Extension. I'm Caitlin Wilson. I'm sure most of you know that by now. I'm the Education Program Specialist at SFEC. And just as a quick reminder, I'm sure most of you are aware at this point if you joined us last month, but if you're registered to be here today, you're now registered for the entire 2021 webinar series. So that's a little bit different than how we've done it previously. So it's kind of more of a subscription approach where once you've registered, you will get connection instructions every month to your inbox. Additionally, you can access connection instructions each month through this Canvas course that you will have access to. And I highly recommend bookmarking that link just in case the connection instructions go to your spam. I know there's some folks that have issues receiving those, or if you can't find them on the morning of, you can just go to that page and the connection instructions for that day's webinar will be right there front and center. So that being said, we hope to see you next month when we hear from Monica Chandler at the Department of Ag, and she'll be talking about biological control of leafy spurge and spotted knapweed in the state. And here's the link to that webinar if you'd like to check it out. And some of you may have already heard this last month, but in an attempt to try to do something a little different, I'm asking everyone about their continuing ed credits when they register. So if you answered those questions, I will process your continuing ed credits for every webinar you attend this year. We will still drop the link to the survey at the end of the webinar, so watch for that if you're unsure. And you'll also automatically be redirected to that page when you close the Zoom window. And unless something about your continuing ed request, continuing ed credit request changes, so maybe your email or what type of credits you're requesting, you only need to request credits once this year. Since you're registered for the whole series, I can just look at the attendance and give you the credits for each webinar that you attend. So if you got credits last month, you don't need to request credits again this year. As always, we're recording this webinar and it'll be posted to the website probably sometime this afternoon, tomorrow the latest, and you'll be notified by email when that is available. Feel free to drop questions in the chat throughout the webinar and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. And diving in now, you might recall that we were planning to hear from Paul Dubuque and Mike Reineken this morning, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they were unable to join us today. So I am very thankful to Angie Gupta, who stepped up to the plate to present this month. So thank you again, Angie. Angie Gupta is a University of Minnesota Extension professor of forestry who specializes in terrestrial invasive species. And she's done invasive species early detection and education outreach for over 10 years. So today, she's going to talk to us about why and how we can report, can and should report invasive species. And she's going to cover numerous tools that we can use in Minnesota to do so. So Angie, the screen is yours. And while you're getting that set up, I'm going to drop this link here. Angie has agreed to share her slides, so you're welcome to follow along. There's also some links in the slides to resources that you can access. And it's all yours, Angie. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. And I assume you can both, one, hear me and two, see my slides, correct? Excellent. So good morning, everybody. My name is Angie Gupta, and I'm here to talk about why and how to report invasive species. And I'm going to talk mostly about terrestrial invasive species, but the truth of the matter is all of these platforms can be used for all invasive species, so aquatic and terrestrial together. So the first thing is I believe we have some Zoom poll questions that Caitlin is going to ask. So we get a little better handle on what you guys know, where you go, and things like that. So there we go. So the first question is, one, are you familiar with these tools? Choose all that apply. And so this is multiple choice. The Glennon app or EdMaps Online, EdMaps Pro app, ISM Track, iNaturalist, Invasive Plant Control Network.
And Angie, I'll just leave these up until either most have voted or we get to about a minute.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, looks like we're holding steady at 35. Oh, A couple more coming in. Give it another 10 seconds here.
All right. So I have to say, I think that's a little unexpected, but really great news. So it looks like almost half of the audience has used iNaturalist before, and over a third have used either Glennon app or EdMaps Online, and a little over 25% have used EdMaps Pro. So I'm very pleasantly surprised by that. Only a small percent, 3, have used ISM Track, and about a third have used Invasive Plant Control Net database. So excellent. All right, thank you for that, Caitlin. I think
Second
you
one?
yeah, go to the second one, please.
No, don't do that. Trying to figure out how to get back to, it keeps wanting to open up the same question. Okay, so it only wants to open up that one question. I can see folks are voting for it again. So to avoid, using up time, how about we just ask the last two in the chat? They're a bit easier. So Angie, I can either pose those questions to folks, or you can go ahead.
Yeah, do you have them right in front of you? Otherwise, I can get them.
I do not. I know one was, can you tell us how many forest stands? There you go.
Yep. So here are the questions if you can see them. I'm still sharing, so it's a little bit funny. So how many different forested sites do you visit in a typical week for work or recreation? First choice is 0. Second choice is 1 to 3. Third choice is 5 to 7.
There we go.
More than, oh, hey, we
got it.
Perfect.
Apologies for that, folks. Zoom likes to change things up now and then, and it was different than the last time I used the polling.
So again, the question is, how many different forested sites do you visit in a typical week for work or recreation? 0, 1 to 3, 5 to 10, or more than 10?
All right, I'll give you another 10 seconds. Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right.
Okay, 1 to 3, perfect. So 65% said 1 to 3 sites visited per week. Forested sites 5 to 10. 20% said 5 to 10, and more than 10 was 8% of participants. So great numbers. And it's really great. The more you guys, when you're out there seeing things, can then know how to report them, the better off we'll all be. So Caitlin, I do believe there's one more question.
Yep, a quick one. Yep, here we go.
So would you benefit from having access to new high resolution database about the locations of invasive species on sites near your work area? Yes or no? So the question is, would you benefit from having this data set for spaces near you?
All right, give another 10 seconds. Most of you have voted at this point. All right.
Yes. Okay, great. So perfect. Thank you guys for doing that for us. It just helps us to know where you guys are, what I should concentrate on, and then how useful this might be. So moving along here. So why you can help. So one of the basic things about invasive species is to know where they are and more or less how much they are. So just how many there are and where. So distribution and density. And that is, I think, easily done if we essentially crowdsource that information. So everybody that's out there in nature, in forests and prairies, on roadsides, who sees invasive species knows how to properly report it, then all of us can use that data to make better management decisions and more informed decisions. And so most of you folks are out there for, at least, 1 to 3 times per week you're out in the woods. And so if you can be on the lookout and know how to quickly report these things, it'll be better for everyone. All right, so the tools that we're gonna talk about are learn what tools Minnesota utilizes for invasive species reporting, tracking, and management. Learn how to report in each of these tools. Learn about how you can share data across agencies and borders, and then a quick safety reminder of working out and doing this type of work in the woods. So the specific tools. So we have EdMaps. So this is a big overarching national platform, early detection distribution mapping system. And you can report in various ways, and this interconnects in various ways. So sometimes I like to use the Google analogy. So Google is this gigantic universe of resources that includes Gmail and calendaring and Google Docs and Google Slides like I'm using today, all kinds of stuff. And they all play really nicely together. They have their individual uses and purposes, but they interconnect really well. And that's what EdMaps does. So for the website, we're going to look at how you can enter reports, view maps, query information. For the mobile apps, there's both the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app and EdMaps Pro. They each connect in the same EdMaps online and this overarching tool. They just do it a little bit differently depending upon what exactly you're trying to do. And then iNaturalist, so about 50% of you said you were familiar with iNaturalist. iNaturalist is now feeding in Minnesota. Specific species are feeding from iNaturalist to EdMaps, so even that has greater connectivity than it has in the past. And then finally, ISM Track is a recording management. It records management activities and keeps tracks of infestations, and that platform is also interconnected entirely with EdMaps, so they work really seamlessly together. They have these different names in a large part because they had different initial funding sources. So we've been trying to figure out how to make this branding a little bit more uniform, and it's a work in progress. All right, so again, the specific tools. So these are links. All of these things can be Googled easily if you want to try them while we chat. So EdMaps and Glennon, they're the same feature, is the preferred way for Minnesotans to report invasive species through a smartphone. Okay, so the Glennon app through your smartphone is the #1 preferred way to report all invasive species in the state of Minnesota. iNaturalist is a great citizen science database that records observations of plant animals and any living things. This is also a really good way to get to better understand your environment and know what's out there. And then finally, the Minnesota Invasive Plant Network includes the Plant Control Database, which is a database maintained by the University of Wisconsin Extension that gives plant management options for species based on effectiveness. We're going to look at all of these, so this is just the overview slide. All right, so I could prattle on, but I'm actually going to let these videos do it because they're a lot more concise than I can be. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and then play this video. So it should already be shared and it should show the sound. So Caitlin, if it does not, please let me know.
Welcome to this presentation from the Wisconsin First Detector Network. This video covers several of the things you can do on the EdMaps website, from learning about invasive species to managing your invasive species reports. EdMaps, the Early Detection and Distribution Mapping System, is a website that houses a national database of invasive species reports. To access all of the features we cover today, you will need to register for a free account. Let's start with learning about some invasive species. To do this, click on Species Information on the menu. From here, you can click on a category to refine the list of species, scroll through the list, or start typing your species name in the search box. Click on the name of the species to access its information page. On each species page, you'll find an overview of the species, which includes identifying features and the ecological threat posed by the species. Scroll down the page to find links to additional resources about that species, and keep scrolling to find images. You can click on an image to enlarge it. Below the images, you'll find even more information, like distribution maps. Speaking of distribution maps, that's another thing you can access without an account on EdMaps. To access the distribution maps, click on Distribution Maps on the top menu, and again, find your species by category by scrolling through the list or by typing the species in the search box. For each species, you have the option to view distribution maps by state, county, or point. Let's start with the state distribution map. This gives you a good picture of where the species has been found in the United States. But what if you want to know if the species is in your part of the state? you can view the distribution by county. Note that there are 3 options here: distribution, record density, and literature versus observation. We'll cover all 3. In the county distribution map, a county is highlighted in green if there is at least one report of the species from that county in the EdMaps database. Moving on, you can also view record density by county, in which the darker shades of green represent more records in a given county. Finally, you can view the literature versus observation distribution by county, which tells you where the invasive species reports were generated. If you want even more detailed information about the observations, you can view the distribution as points. Each point represents one report, and here the legend shows that reports are designated as negative, meaning the species is not present, positive, meaning that the species is present, and treated or eradicated. The circles with the numbers are report hotspots. As you zoom in on the map, you'll see the hotspots break up into smaller hotspots or individual reports. Click on an individual report to see who reported the species and when they reported it. You can click on the report ID number to access the full report, which might tell you more information about the habitat and the life stage of the plant when it was reported. If you are signed into your EdMaps account, you are also able to download the data in the formats shown at the top of the map. If you want more specific information or information about more than one species at a time, you can use the advanced query tools to access and download data. To access the query tools, click on Tools and Training on the main menu. Next, look to the bottom of the Database Tools list and click on Advanced Query Tools. Here you'll find a form that allows you to submit a query to fit your interests. As you can see, you can search for a lot of things, including reporter, dates of the observations, species, and location. Let's say we want to access all the reports for Wisconsin. We can ignore most of the fields in the form and specify Wisconsin in the state field. Once you submit your query, you will be brought to a point map that shows all the reports that match your query. As with the point distribution map we explored earlier, you can zoom in to view individual reports. You can also download this data in the formats listed. As you can see, there's a lot you can learn about invasive species from EdMaps without seeing an invasive species in real life. But let's say you do see an invasive species and you want to contribute to the wealth of knowledge on EdMaps. Head on over to Report Sightings. To report an invasive species observation, click on Report Sightings. Once you're logged in, you can select your state from the list. You can enter a lot of information in the reporting form, starting first and most importantly with the species that you've observed. Begin typing your species into the field and select it as it appears. The observation date field will automatically show the date you are creating the report. But you should edit the date to reflect the date you actually observed the invasive species. Feel free to fill in information about habitat and abundance and the plant description. In addition to the species name and date, it's hugely important to record the location of your observation. Let's say we saw this garlic mustard at Schmeekley Reserve in Portage County. I'll select Portage County and the map will zoom into the county. Then I can zoom in further to the specific location and select the point marker to place a point on the map where I saw the garlic mustard. To the left of the map, you'll see that the latitude and longitude of the point is automatically recorded. But let's say I'm looking at a large infestation of garlic mustard. It doesn't make much sense to record each individual plant. Instead, I can draw a polygon over the infestation. To do this, select the polygon option at the top of the map and click to place the vertices of the polygon. The next important thing is to add pictures to the report. State-level verifiers rely on your photos to be able to verify that your identification is accurate. If your report isn't verified, it won't be accessible by the EdMaps community. Finally, you can submit your report and wait for it to be verified. Your local verifier will contact you if they need additional information. You might be aware that you can also submit reports to the EdMaps database using a smartphone app like the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app. If you have a smartphone or tablet, this is the fastest, easiest way to submit reports. Visit the Wisconsin First Detector Network website for more information about using the app. To access and edit your invasive species reports submitted on the EdMaps website or via the Great Lakes Early Detection Network smartphone app, click on My EdMaps on the main menu. You'll need to log into your EdMaps account if you haven't done so already. Here you can do things like edit your user profile, download all of your reports, and set species alerts. In addition, this is a place to go to edit your reports. No matter what the reason you have for editing your report, select Edit next to the report to access the editing form. The editing form is the same form you would use to submit an observation on the EdMaps website. Scroll through the form and make any necessary edits, and then save the edits by selecting Submit Report. This updates your report using the same record ID number that was originally assigned to your report. If you misidentify something or accidentally submit duplicate reports, you can also delete reports from My EdMaps. Just select Delete next to the report. Thanks for watching this presentation from the Wisconsin First Detector Network. We hope you...
All right, so hopefully that was informative. So a couple of things we just covered. I'm not going to repeat them again, but to make an EdMaps account, you're going to visit EdMaps. There's also EdMaps Midwest. They both go to the same place. If you already have one, then hopefully you just learned how to use EdMaps more, and then there's more information for advanced users. I'm going to have a list of optional learning that you can do if you are considered an advanced learner, so that's coming up shortly. Before we go there, though, this is how to collect a point using your smartphone and the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app, which again feeds directly into EdMaps. They're all integrated. So we're going to spend a few minutes watching this video.
The most important aspect of the Great Lakes Early Detection Network centers on the collection of invasive species occurrence data. This can be done in the form of creating a point, which is the default on the app, or a polygon. The polygon option is a user-defined shape that denotes the boundary of the invasive species being mapped. There are pros and cons to each.
Angie, I'm not sure if this is on everyone's end, but it seems to be stuck.
Area may be preferable in many
I suspect
cases
it changed now,
because
right,
it will
Caitlin?
result in a smaller number of objects to keep track of for a land manager. For example, in this case, a user mapped individual tree species. This resulted in over 100 points present in one field. An alternative option would have been to denote the entire infestation with a polygon, and utilizing points to denote nascent populations. For both points and polygons, the first step is to select the species you wish to map. There are several ways to create these reports in the smartphone app. You can view species by category, view all species, or you can select from your My Species list, as I have done here. You have the ability to toggle between common and scientific names by clicking Scientific or the Options tab in the upper right corner of the screen. Once you find the desired species for your report from these lists, select it and the Report and Observation page will appear. When this is selected, it will take you to a field data collection screen with that species listed at the top of the screen. Just below that is the current date and time. You can change this field if you wish to reflect something that you saw at an earlier date. Below date, you will see a field for site name. It is here that you can attribute this point or polygon to a site in ISM track. Doing this will save you from having to do this back in the office. Each subsequent field observation will autofill the site that you select at this step. This saves time but must be changed manually when you move to a different field site. Next, you will see the option to attach images. This feature is important for verification purposes. Tap the camera image to bring up the options to take a picture or select a photo from your library. Most of the time, field data is collected when you are physically near the species. you'll see the option to attach images. This feature is important for verification purposes. Tap the camera image to bring up the options to take a picture or select a photo from your library or gallery. Most of the time, field data is collected when you're physically near the species being reported, and you will select the option to take a picture. This will open your device's camera and allow you to take a snapshot of the invasive species being mapped. A good photo will not be too close or too far away and will capture any distinguishing features of the species, such as flowers or fruits. You will see the option at the bottom of the screen after you snap your photo to either retake or use photo, or for Android devices, discard or save the image. Selecting use photo or save will return you to the field data collection form. Next, you will see the location field. Here you should see fields for latitude and longitude, and there should be numbers filled in for these fields. If they are blank, it means that the app is not communicating properly with your GPS, and you may need to turn it on. This can be done by manipulating your device's settings. You will also see an accuracy field, and this should typically display a 5 or 10 meter accuracy. If the accuracy is larger than 10 meters, give your device a few minutes to gather satellite signal until the displayed accuracy is acceptable to you. You will see an icon on the right side of the location field that shows a pin on the map. Clicking this icon will bring up an aerial map of your location if you are connected to the internet through a Wi-Fi network or cellular plan. From there, you can zoom in and out while triple tapping the screen will move the red location point to where you tap. This red point will be the location of your field observation. It is possible to place the red point away from your current location if that is desired. This is especially useful if the observation is difficult to access, as this allows you to manually select the location. You can also click the polygon button at the bottom of the screen and draw a shape to denote the boundary of the infestation instead of using the default point. You have two options on how to draw the polygon. In the Android app, you must choose freeform or vertices, with freeform being a hand-drawn shape and vertices being points to form a polygon. The default for Apple users will be the icon that looks like a hexagon, allow you to draw your shape like the vertices option by touching the screen once for each boundary of the infestation. This feature is easier to use for most reports, especially when the area reported is rectangular or circular. You may alternatively select the icon that looks like a pencil with a squiggly line, which will allow you to draw a freeform shape. Depending on your device, if you select this option, you may need to tap the screen once to place your starting point, then push and hold on that blue dot until the screen shifts downward, allowing you to see the blue dot again. This is difficult and often is not accomplished on the first time. When this happens, keep your finger on the screen and draw your desired shape, then lift your finger from the screen. This feature works best when mapping irregular or linear shapes. Pushing Done on the bottom right for Apple users and in the upper right for Android users will finalize your point or polygons. The remaining fields are optional, but you may find value in filling them out, depending on the goals of your program. Clicking Save on the bottom of the screen will finalize your report.
All right. So hopefully that was helpful. And so these are free. So EdMaps, or really probably the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app, are free on any smartphone device in your app store, as are all of the other apps we're going to talk about. So EdMaps Pro and iNaturalist. We are not going to watch this 57-minute video, but know that there is a 57-minute video about how to use EdMaps Pro mobile app. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I have used it. If there are questions, I can field those at the end. I would say the most important difference between EdMaps and Glennon is super great for just reporting invasive species. So you're out there, you're walking to your site, you happen to notice some tansy and you want to make sure it gets reported. So you're going to, I think it's easiest to pull out your smartphone, use your Great Lakes Early Detection Network app, take the picture. Your phone auto has the the GPS locations, you make a comment or not, you add the site location if you have that in ISM Track. And then if you have internet access, you can upload your queue immediately. Otherwise, you can do it when you get back to the office. Easy. The whole thing takes less than a minute. If this is a tree that you intend to revisit, this is a site that you tend to revisit, this is an infestation that you intend to revisit for whatever reason, then using EdMaps Pro can be a lot easier and better. You can do revisits, so you can talk about change over time in EdMaps Pro better. You do have to do some upfront work. So in the office, before you go out, EdMaps Pro, you're going to need to download the information, say by species, by county, and make sure that's in your phone so it can work offline. So I think for revisits, definitely use EdMaps Pro. For everyday reporting, Glennon works great. All right. So moving along. So the DNR saw the advertisement for this presentation go out, and then they reached out to me as a very gentle reminder to ask all of you folks who are out there in the woods to please report to the DNR oak wilt in Pine County, Kennebec County, Northern Mille Lacs County, and Morrison County and North. And they want you to do that through EdMaps, so Great Lakes Early Detection Network or EdMaps Online. And what is going to be most helpful is if you truly believe it's oak wilt, or you highly suspect it's oak wilt. So they're essentially asking all of us natural resource professionals to bone up on what oak wilt looks like and be on lookout for it and then report it. They only have a few verifiers, so there aren't a lot of people that will be looking at these reports, but they're really worried about oak wilts in these counties, and they're using EdMaps in order to do that. So please, Pine County, Kennebec County, Northern Mille Lacs County, and Morrison County and North, please be on the lookout for oak wilt. Again, oak wilt really is a summer problem, but be on the lookout come mid to late summer. All right. So arrest the pests. I just want to say it's out there in case you're talking to private woodland owners or others who are not interested in any of these great online tools. So at this point, we do not recommend reporting to arrest the pest. So as professionals, please don't do this. But if you need to tell other people, it is still an option. So arrest the pest is run through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. It was originally started for things like emerald ash borer. The truth of the matter is they will properly distribute any pest that comes through. So you can upload pictures and attach them to an email. You need to send a short description, including your contact information, and it goes to that email address. You can also call, or a landowner can call this 800 number. Again, please leave a very detailed message with name, location, contact number, type of pest you want to report in the voicemail, and then someone will call you back. And you will not get a person. It will go to voicemail. Again, not preferred, but if you're working with others and they want to know that there's a way other than an app, this is how you could do it. All right, so this is a relatively short video about ISM Track. I'm probably not going to spend a lot more time on it. ISM Track has been sort of rolling out slowly for a while. The DNR, I think, is still thinking about whether they're going to commit to it as an agency. But at this point, if you would like access, if you think that's a good fit for you and your resource department, or just you as a consultant forester, for example, you can request access. So what is it and why do you care? We'll watch this short video.
Wisconsin and Minnesota are blessed with a wide range of natural resources, from forests and prairies to wetlands and lakes. While many individuals are working hard to maintain these treasured resources, they are threatened. Invasive species are one of the top threats to conserving our wild and natural resources. While often difficult to control, the best success can be found in detecting populations early and utilizing a plan to systematically manage these populations to minimize their impact. Tools are available to facilitate rapid detection of populations, but advances in the development of tracking invasive species management were lacking, until this new software was developed. Introducing ISM Track, a new online software that makes tracking invasive species and their associated management activities easier. It has many abilities, such as collecting data in real time and associating these points to location-based mappings. Software also allows for summarization of data for reports and much, much more. This technology utilizes free mapping software through the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app. The application facilitates easy collection of invasive species locations with either a point or a polygon. These observations can be displayed on a map and tracked over time to determine the invasive's level of spread. This software allows the user to easily record management activities that are connected to the mapped infestations, allowing for tracking of the effectiveness of management activities and aiding in the creation of customizable reports using ISM-tracked query tools. Time spent by staff, volunteers, and even contractors on a particular site can be tracked and summarized using ISM-track. Information entered such as hours logged and percent treated can be downloaded for use with other softwares. Training videos on how to use these resources are readily available. If you want an easy way to track invasive species and accompanying management activities, ISM Track may be the solution. Currently available in Wisconsin and Minnesota. If interested in using the software, please go to the website of ismtrack.org and use the Request Access to ISM Track feature. We hope that you too can join the fight against invasive species in the Midwest. ISM Track was created in a collaborative effort thanks to these organizations to help with struggles individuals are having with invasives.
Okay, so hopefully that was useful. What I think is really powerful about this is it's cloud-based management software. And so if you're working with multiple managers, let's say you're a part of a county organization, and so there might be the road folks, the township road crews, there might be public works, there might be parks, and then there might be you, the forestry staff, and you're all trying to manage infestations across these various property lines. You guys can all get in ISM Track and you can start tracking your management so that you don't have to call and say, hey, look, did you spray that? Or did you cut that? Or has that been treated? You can just quickly go and look at it and it can tell you. The same working across agencies. So if you're with the county and the township is using this, then again, if you're sharing information, you can quickly access that information using the online platform and see what others are doing. It also is really helpful if you're trying to track the information within your site. So you can put in weather observations, crew time, herbicide applications, you can put biocontrol applications, you can put, pulling, treating, cutting, whatever you did, and then you can see if any of those were more or less effective over time, and if there's a combination that worked best for that site. And then frankly, if it works better in some sites than in other sites. So it has a lot of potential. And so with that, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, sometimes escape works just like I want it to, and other times it's different. Oh, all right. Okay, I'm not really sure what happened there, but we'll be back. Okay, here we are. So perfect. And so again, to just sort of recap again, ISM Track can do lots of stuff. It can track staffing, treatment method, time traveled, volunteer and crew hours, weather conditions, completion dates, and other critical information. And then you can pull that out the backside, say for year-end reporting or to summarize your activity over the field season or whatever you might need to do. You can relatively easily pull that out of the back end as well. All right. So a couple more videos. This one is super short. I'm transitioning now to iNaturalist. A lot more of you were familiar with that, which is really spectacular. For those who are not, this is a 30-second video that's just a quick overview, and then there'll be 2 other short iNat videos to talk about this. This tool is not specific to invasive species. I want to be extremely clear about that. So we want all invasive species reporting through EDMAPS, through the Great Lakes Early Detection Network preferably. But if you or the folks that you're working with, the landowner, they aren't really confident of their tree identification or their grass identification or their herbaceous layer identification, and they don't want to look silly, they don't want to misreport a native as an invasive, this can be a really powerful tool to help people just understand what they're looking at.
iNaturalist is a social network where anyone can record and share their photographs of living things. When you share a photograph on iNaturalist, it becomes more than just a picture. It becomes an observation. It's a record of an organism in a place at a time. Each observation is shared with a global community of naturalists, where it can be identified, discussed, and used to give us a greater understanding of life on Earth. Wherever you are, biodiversity is there too. Get out and observe it.
All right, so we have another one This is another short iNaturalist video. And this is how to do an observation. Again, iNaturalist is free on your smartphone app, so you can download it right now. Get yourself all logged in.
Okay, so you've installed the iNaturalist app and created an account. Time to get outside and record your first observation. Here's how to do it. Any living thing, like a plant, animal, or fungus, can be an observation on iNaturalist. Once you find something you'd like to record, just tap Observe and take a photo. You can review your picture, then hit Next if it looks good. To identify it, hit What did you see? If you have an internet connection, iNaturalist will suggest 10 visually similar species and often a common ancestor. You can choose one of those or search for a species name. On this observation details screen, you can add more photos of the same organism or write a note. The date, time, and location have been automatically added. You can also change the geoprivacy of the observation, mark whether it's captive or cultivated, or add it to a project. Once you're finished, just hit Share and your observation will be uploaded for everyone to see and identify. That's it. Keep on exploring and sharing.
So I just want to reiterate something that captive or cultivated is a super critical point that we want you to notice. So a lot of our invasive plants came out of horticulture. So they're commonly planted in our yards and tended landscapes. And so to be frank, if you have Japanese barberry in your front yard, I don't need to know about it from an invasive species perspective. It was likely planted there. It's likely being tended. It may actually be a valuable part of your landscape. If, however, it's in a forest or a prairie, then that would be considered invasive. And we definitely want that to be reported. So it's really important that if it is in a tended landscape, that cultivated button is pushed. And I said this before, and I'll just reiterate it again. So iNaturalist is not for invasive species reporting, but recognizing that more and more people are using iNaturalist. There are a list of very specific species. So those include all of our noxious weeds, plus other species that the invasive species professionals have identified for the state of Minnesota that are very regularly now, every well, I think they're transitioning over weekly, but on there's a 3 weeks between time the report is put into iNaturalist until it gets to EdMaps. And so there's a lag of 3 weeks. So EdMaps again is better if it's an actual invasive species, but it means that so these casual iNaturalist users can report an invasive species knowingly or not, and we will still get it and it will be included in the EdMaps reports for these specific species. And so just earlier this year, I created a training module and we're going to ask some volunteers to be iNaturalist verifiers for very specific species to help us clean up those iNaturalist reports so that when they get to EdMaps, they're higher quality and better reports for us. So a little bit of an aside there. All right, there's one more iNaturalist video about how to take good pictures. And this is about a minute long. And oh, I don't think it went forward. There we go. This is about a minute long, and all of these reporting tools require good quality images in order to do verification. So this is super critical. All right. And so all of these, again, require really high quality pictures. You folks are all plant people, so that means multiple pictures. So, you know, what is your, is it opposite or alternate? The whole leaf, if you have it, the trunk, the whole plant, all the different characteristics that can be useful, they're really critical. So again, you don't need to, these are optional if you guys want to go back and learn them, but if you want more information on how to make identifications in iNaturalist, there's a 20-minute great tutorial. If you're really into photography and you want to geotag your photographs for iNaturalist, there's a way to do that. And if you are like a birder and you want to upload sound to iNaturalist, there is a way to do that. All right, so I want to quickly go into the invasive plant control database, and I'm actually just going to click in here. So this is free online app. I think it's great if you're kind of unfamiliar with a new plant or if you want to give a resource to a landowner. So we're going to go in, click into this, and I'm going to start a search. And I want to show you a couple of things. So look at, you can do common name, scientific name. I'm going to do buckthorn. I'm going to do Rhamnus catharticus. I'm going to say select the plant, and then I can say, am I a novice? Yes or no, what my habitat type is. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not a novice. It's forest, it's winter, and then I'm going to do search method. And as a result, I will get lots of things, including case studies, right? So someone used goats and they've reported it. Delighted to see Fond du Lac tribe has reported some of their management here in this case study. So a little bit akin to the Great Lakes Silvicultural Library. And then it talks about the different types. There's mowing. So this is non-chemical treatments. There's mowing, its effectiveness, seasonality, the details, lots of things about chemical controls, cut, stump, different types of herbicides, different types, common names, utilization rates. There's a whole bunch here, hack and squirt. We've got basal bark treatment. And for all of the plants in this database, they'll have a similar type of information. So I think it can be super useful. All right. So this is, I'm about to rev up my final video and then I'll be ready to take questions. So this is just a safety reminder. We all experience the outdoors differently. And when people whip out their phones and start taking pictures of things, this can make people uncomfortable and nervous. So this is Dudley Edmondson, who is a nature observer and journalist out of the Duluth area. But I'm going to actually show you this video. It's Birding While Black. It's been out for about 3 years, I think, at least. It's from National Geographic. I realize we're not talking about birding, but I think that some of the very same principles apply. And it's a good reminder that we all need to be safe while we're out there working in the woods. So this is a 2-minute video.
You know, they're essential tools for birding. They're your binoculars, your spotting scope, your field guide. And if you're black, you're going to need probably 2 or 3 forms of ID. Never wear a hoodie, ever. The word for an African American in camouflage is incognito. Blackbirds are your birds. Red-winged blackbirds, grackles, rusty blackbirds, brewer's blackbirds, black scoters, you claim black brant, crows, ravens, and blackbirds are largely maligned. Any bird that's black is my bird. You know, the edge of day as light is fading, those crepuscular hours are the times when many birds come to life. It's such a beautiful time to bird. But if you're a blackbirder and you're going to bird at night, you better be careful because you might be perceived as being up to no good. Be prepared to be confused with the other blackbirder. When I meet another blackbirder, it's like encountering an ivory-billed woodpecker, an endangered species. Extinction looms. These are the rules for the blackbirder. We have to do something to make birding, to make nature study in general more interesting to people of color. Out of every 100 bird watchers, how many are black?
5.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for hanging with us there. Oh, I want to leave that. Okay. And so a couple more optional resources. You have the link to this whole PowerPoint. You don't need to have remembered all of these, but if you want any, they're all summarized in this slide. The links for all of the apps and resources I talked about are summarized in this slide. So again, these are meant to be resources you can connect to later. And with that, I think I have 10 minutes for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now and hope Caitlin, well, actually, I will keep sharing my screen and let Caitlin ask field questions.
Sure, great. Thank you, Angie, for that. That was great. So I only saw one question come in so far, and Becky asked, how valuable are negative reports? And Becky, feel free to clarify if that was with regard to a specific reporting app that we talked about. Otherwise, Angie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I suspect that the question is related to these distribution maps in EdMap. So let's pull some up, for example. Okay, so I'm going to go to points, and then I'll just show, I think, what the question is about. So a negative report is here in blue. And so if we go Japanese barberry in the state of Minnesota, so what that means is someone has been out to those sites and looked for Japanese barberry and did not find it. And that can be really valuable. I will tell you where this is most commonly done is when people are doing surveys. So for example, DNR Forestry tends to hire summer interns that go out and have defined routes where they go and look for species. And so then almost all of these are, if we were to zoom in, which I can do, you will see that they're almost always, DNR reports that, and that's a designated survey route that they do. And so there's no picture, there's nothing there. It's a point they've been sent out to look. They can be really valuable. I would not bother to put in a lot of them unless you're doing a designated survey like that, or you're trying to do eradication or heavy management. And so you've been working on it. Now you want to know how you're doing. You're going back out and you're tracking those negative reports. So hopefully that answered the question.
Great, thank you. We got another one. Is it a good idea or ethical to report invasive species found on private land while doing a forest stewardship plan?
I think the answer to both of those is yes. I think it is a good idea, and I do not think it is an ethical issue. I do think it is useful to tell the landowner, particularly if you are trying to have a relationship with them. Like, so for example, you're the consulting forester. So having said all of that, some species immediately result in quarantines. And so think of emerald ash borer, for example. And so this can be a bit of a quandary. The other thing is that, in the weed world, there is no quarantine. That's not the way in which we regulate it. We regulate with the noxious weed list. And so that requires certain levels of management. The most rigorous would be something like oriental bittersweet, which requires the landowner to eradicate it. And so I understand the issue. I have found that very few people do not want to do right by their woods. So by and large, I find they don't know. They don't know they have it. They don't know what to do about it. They didn't realize it was a problem. And this is where I think, offering education, being a trusted consultant, creating that relationship, you're not blaming them. Rarely did they have anything to do with it, or they certainly didn't knowingly intend to do that. And so the short answer is yes, I think you should report it. And ethically, I think it is best practice to inform the landowner and have a good collegial conversation about that. But truthfully, we get reports on private land a lot, and we stop and do drive-bys. We're driving a road, we see something along the road edge, we take a picture, we take the report, and that happens a fair bit. And frankly, it can be really helpful and impactful, particularly for the really high impact species like oriental bittersweet. In the agriculture world, Palmer amaranth is another good example.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Angie. I definitely agree that I think, maybe not doing it behind someone's back as if you expect them to get in trouble with it, but having those conversations, they might just not be aware. So that was a great question. We've got a couple more minutes. I don't have anything yet. So I'll watch for the next minute or so, but otherwise, I just want to say thank you, Angie. I'm really glad that we were able to have you here today, especially since otherwise I'm not sure we would have had a webinar this month. So this has been great, and I hope folks have found some of those resources useful, or that you at least learned about a new app that you didn't know about before, and that might help you, report some things that you've seen that you weren't sure where to report previously. Again, the recording will be ready sometime later today or early tomorrow, and I will include some of the resources from those slides with that as well. Also, someone just shared a note here that on EdMaps, you can check the private box and it will be reported, but it won't be shown on public distribution maps. So I'm assuming that was in response to if you are talking about reporting something on private land, that might be a good way to go about that and might make a landowner feel more comfortable. And also, just as a reminder too, that the reason we saw importance in this presentation today is that you're all a really important group of this. 88% would benefit from having nearby data. Like according to the poll question earlier, you all expressed that there is an importance in that, and you're also out in the woods. There's a high likelihood that you're going to see something, and you probably have some, if not above average, plant ID skills. Your woods, you can see things that change, and so you are an important group of people that are out in the woods that can report these things that someone might not have seen otherwise. So just a reminder of why, we saw the importance of presenting this to you today. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Angie. And I hope to see you all next month.
So if people still have a couple minutes, I will show you something in the query. I think people can leave. Caitlin kind of just closed out. But in the query tool, if you are going to look at a property, for example, and you want to know what invasive species are around it, you can do that relatively easily. So I'm in Olmsted County, so I'm going to pick Minnesota, and I am going to pick Olmsted County. I can go to township, but I probably won't for today. There we go. Oh, and then I'm going to submit, and it will pull up every invasive species report in Olmsted County, which is like a shockingly large number, sadly, in my opinion. But this can help me if I'm working on a property or I'm in an area of the state that I'm not quite as familiar with, and I don't know what I should be on the lookout for example. This can help me to see what's nearby the property that I'm looking at. I can go to satellite image and see the locations, and then I can zoom in. And again, I can look at each of these dots and say, oh, look, somebody reported brown membrated stink bug. What's this one? I have no idea what these is. So field pennycrest. Near my house, I know there's a ton. Yeah, this is me here. And there'll be a lot more loading, but I can zoom in and say, well, what is this one? Common mullein. And so, it can help you to identify what you might be on the lookout for by just narrowing it to those specific locations. So thinking back to that question, would it be helpful for you to know? This can certainly do that for you in that way. And again, I'm showing terrestrial invasive species. Aquatics would show up here if I had zoomed in on an area that had water. And so here's Japanese tree lilac. All right, I can be done. I was filling a little bit of time, but I thought that search would be useful.
Yeah, no, that's great. And nothing else has come in, so folks had a little bit of an extra chance there. For folks that are still here, I just pasted the link for continuing ed credits into the chat. Again, you would have been redirected when you close out, but please be sure to request those as soon as possible. I like to get those done day of, so it's, if you get them reported or requested tomorrow, you will still receive your credit. There might just be a bit of a delay if I've already submitted them. So please get those done as soon as possible. And again, thank you all, and thank you, Angie, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.